All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's do roll call. So in the room, we have Tim, Stephanie, Steve, Swan, myself. Do we have any commissioners online?
No commissioners online.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public online?
No members of the public online.
Okay, so no. Were there any questions submitted in advance of the meeting tonight?
There were not tonight. And Christy and Brian have excused absences. I anticipate Nazan will be here shortly. See.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. I'll do our standard land acknowledgement statement. So we acknowledge that we are on the indigenous lands of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. Okay, let's get down to the approval of last month's minutes. Can we get a nomination?
I move we approve the minutes.
Okay. Second. Okay, all in favor of approving last month's minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, the minutes pass. Thank you. We have no public comments tonight. So I think we'll move on to really our main event. So we've got Andrew Roddy. He's with the Parks and Rec Department, and he's the Facilities Capital Project Manager. So the city is looking into some of the aging infrastructure, primarily the boiling and heating system for the MOC stands for Maintenance Operations Center.
Correct.
And City Hall. So they're looking at options for replacing this infrastructure and trying to align with the city's climate action plan objectives. So as Andrew goes through his presentation, they've worked with an outside consultant doing an analysis of full electrification to provide the energy needs for both structures, a hybrid approach. They've also considered the use of solar as a supplement to both systems. So they've costed that out. Andrew will go through the details, but what we're seeking to do tonight is after Andrew presents all the information, we'll have discussion, and then we'll vote whether our Sustainability Commission supports and endorses the proposed plan. And if we do endorse it, then it'll go forward to City Council in June. Any questions on that? Before Andrew gets going, just by way of reminder, so this building electrification decarbonization approach that Andrew is going to talk about tonight, just bringing it back to the climate action plan. So the two areas where it touches on are buildings and energy and transportation and land use. And as most of you, probably all of you remember, are the city's goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions are 50% reduction by 2030 and a 96% reduction by 2050. And the strategy that a lot of us have been talking about with the community is promoting local government operations that advocate municipal energy efficiency in buildings and structures. So we're going to talk about some ideas tonight for improving the city's energy efficiency in its equipment and its buildings. And then the second goal under buildings and energy is 100% renewable electricity by 2050. And again, the city is trying to promote programs that help attain that objective. And on the transportation and land use portion, and I don't know how deep we're going to get into this part, Andrew, but the city's goal is to increase EV adoption with 100% light duty by 2050, 60% medium duty adoption by 2050, and 40% heavy duty adoption by 2050. So that EV component is also built into the plans and recommendations that you'll hear about tonight.
The fleet aspect is going to be very lightly touched on PowerPoint, but in the PDFs that you were provided with, the fleet electrification is touched on in more detail there and included in the timeline that we have.
Okay, great.
The timeline for EV is much more flexible than some of the others as far as the building components. So you can see that, and if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to address those.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So as I understand it, these infrastructure improvements need to be implemented by 2028, correct?
Which aspect? Because there's several
I was
aspects
looking at
here.
the timeline chart, but we'll get into that, I guess.
The timeline chart is has a recommendation on the choice for the city hall. It would begin construction implementation in 28. The EV has a broad line on it. Solar, and I will touch on this in the presentation, doesn't involve a I believe it's a tax credit, an ERA tax credit that you kind of have to really get going.
There's a year or two window left on that.
There's into 27.
Okay.
And that's factored into it.
Okay.
But then you've also got solar, which is kind of more the construction itself is open-ended, but the credits are tied into a time frame. And our recommendation for MOC would not even begin implementation until 2030 at the earliest. 2035 or some of the other components in there, because we're not trying to move ahead and replace early. We do want to kind of take advantage of end of life aspect and the time frame that we're forced to comply with.
Okay.
So one of the largest goals is not only the sustainability and environmental impact, but also the responsible stewardship for the citizens of Sammamish.
Yep.
So,
no, thanks for that background. Any questions before we get going?
One of the things I noticed, and it's kind of a heads up, that as I read through this, and the cost estimates, no mention of determining or taking advantage of or credit for the social cost of carbon. It's called out in our climate action plan in at least 3 places that I'm aware of. Buildings and energy is one of them. So when you compare prices for the like-to-like hybrid and full electrification, you should probably also include the social cost of carbon. And right now, according to the Energy Information Agency, it's about, what was it, $81 a metric ton. The confusion to me, and I couldn't find out about any information about this, but do you calculate that based on your annual savings? Because they do have a factor in there for the cost of money going forward.
Are you talking about annual savings related to the social cost, or are you talking about? No, we don't have the social cost of carbon factored in, but we do have the utility savings factored in, and that's broken down annually and also monthly in the packet.
Because if you assumed a 20-year life and you calculated, your total saving, your total greenhouse gas reduction, you could be talking several $1 million in social costs.
We do have the carbon, not the cost, but we do have the carbon units in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, this is early kind of planning stages, right? So council will ultimately make a decision based on the findings of this study. I think that would be maybe a future next
The
step.
reason why I bring it up is we've got I'm concerned, and I was concerned when we were writing the climate action plan that somebody out there in the future was going to look at these bills and they're going to say, okay, $1 million for like versus like $7 million for full electrification. Boy, I know where I'm going. And if you factor in the social cost of carbon, all of a sudden that $1 million looks like $8 million. That's my big concern. I want to make sure that people understand that we're not just spending money on a piece of hardware. We got to worry about, because our job is to reduce our carbon footprint, and there's a dollar value for that.
Yeah, that's a great flag, Steve. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I do want to say before we get started in this, back in 2022, our department decided to engage Ming Analysis to complete a comprehensive facility condition assessment so that we could get an idea of the state of our components of our buildings, including MOC and City Hall, because City Hall is getting near end of life on some components, and we didn't want to get to the point of end of life and then make decisions. Mm-hmm. So we've been working towards getting an idea of the components that we felt were coming up on end of life, and to use that to kind of help feed into this report so that we could be as responsible stewards as we could for the community. And it wasn't just replace components that were maintenance wise, but it was also trying to get a path forward for our future. And that analysis helped build the idea of these are things that we need to look into for the decarbonization roadmap. So keep going there. This covers a lot of what Nick was just talking about. We do have the city and state goals that are the climate action plan, which is the most local of these. And you can see the components there that Nick has already covered. But one of the strongest components we have is the Washington State Energy Strategy, which is what the CAP was built from and built off of, that framework that I know you're all aware, but that is something that we're required by the state. So while Sammamish has a very strong and responsible CAP, we also do have state obligations that we are required to comply with, both the state energy strategy and the clean building performance standards. City Hall falls under tier 2 building, as it is over 20,000 square feet. So it will have tier 2 compliance for these items. Go ahead. These are just some broad strokes that we'll be covering whenever we present to council, that electricity is generated in a number of ways. And one of the ways that we use now, natural gas emits carbon, which is detrimental to the environment. And the heat pump systems can run on a cleaner electricity. And electrification is more, it is, well, I mean, it says it's a future-proof strategy in broader terms. It's just something it's a safer choice than trying to gamble on somebody will come up with something super clean and perfect and magical in the next couple of decades. This is just we're talking about what this study is. This is conceptual scoping. This is long-term. And we do want to talk big picture with this. That's what we are looking forward with this. It's not really meant to get into a granularity of costs. It's not meant to just be a static document. This is a jumping off point and giving us a roadmap to the future, not something that is the map itself. This is something that we build from and start the journey. So we went through a 3-stage process with this. There was discovery of components we have, analysis of the existing systems, and then synthesis of the recommendations and how they would work in the buildings themselves. Okay, this is a kind of a stylized image of the systems that we have in place. You can see the rough building details. While this is LEED silver, that is not actually a factor going forward on the recommendation itself. But that is good to know that the building has always had a history of trying to be compliant with environmental concerns. And it's critical to the running of the city. The electrical capacity analysis that you can see on the side there, that's based on observed power usage over the previous year, and it shows a peak demand of 33% of total service capacity. That's the top of the light blue line. And that leaves 67% of the total service capacity available for future electrical loads with our current system.
So what do the two different colors mean?
That is on in the packet. That is on page 10, and it's monthly peak demand versus calculated peak apparent demand.
What's an apparent demand?
I can tell you the factor of that, and it is related to the NEC, and that was a calculation done by McKinstry, our consultant on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't have a better explanation for the calculation itself.
Andrew, something that resonated with me when I was reading this report, thinking about the energy demand for City Hall, and it was noted that it's typically higher than probably other administrative buildings, but this is an emergency operations center, and it's actually a shelter for the community. So in the event of a natural disaster, people would be able to shelter in place here. That might further strengthen part of the arguments for alternative energy, i.e. the solar and heat pumps, because if the grid goes down, this building still needs to be a shelter, right? So if there still is a means via those options to provide some level of power and shelter for people here, it seems like that would help your argument.
And one of the reasons we have such a larger draw of gas in this building is because our police department is housed here,
right,
and that's a 24-hour service. That is a very specific thing that we looked into, because the numbers were showing a disparity between a normal city hall that is a business hours type building. So exactly to the point that you're mentioning, and in the packet, we do use Seattle Police Precinct as a comparison point, as well as typical public service buildings. So there is a little bit of an outlier as far as energy usage, especially gas, because it's heated 24/7.
Right.
Quick question that might not, you might not know a good answer to this, and also might be beyond the scope of what's relevant for now, so feel free to pass on it for now. Do you know, like, in terms of the switchboard capacity, especially if we're looking at using more electricity and less other sources, is there like a standard for like how high we would want to push that capacity? Like,
actually, we do. That's in the PDF, and we will be touching on this here. Our recommendation is very specific to not have to increase service. And that was a key component of what we were looking for, is to make sure that what we have is the capacity. And related to the fleet electrification, we have, with the recommendation of that we're going to put forward, we have enough room on the service that they estimate 27 chargers could be added without increasing the service. Yes.
Just a really quick question out of curiosity. With the LEED certification, like with the different options that we'll be taking a look at soon, is the city looking to pursue like a better LEED certification after?
That really would not be a factor in that. A lot of LEED certification involves paperwork and filing and the original construction of the building. And this really wouldn't change LEED status. But it's just noted in the historical sense that the building has always tried to maintain a responsible environmental footprint.
Thank you.
Okay, so on this page, we start talking about exactly what we were discussing about the natural gas load and the gas charges we have here. The space heating is, especially in winter, is what carries a relatively large base load into the summer because we still do have gas taking care of the building throughout the year. Even though it's small in July and August, we still do have it because it's handling things like water heating and things like that. And the baseline we established is from April 2024 to March 2025. And this data was taken from PSE to generate the numbers here. You can see how the energy is used inside the building here. And like referenced previously in conversation, the Seattle Police Precinct used as a basic reference beyond what a normal public service building would be using. So you can see where we're using significantly more than a regular public service building. And you can also see from
Is that blue one, that's just an average? That's
yeah, that's a median of regional buildings Energy Star rating.
in the area,
I'm sorry?
in the area.
I don't know
Nationwide.
exactly the size of the footprint, but we did try and stay local as much as possible.
Says
because
regional.
as far as the extent of the region, I don't have the exact footprint, but we do try and stay local, mainly because we're trying to get the same sort of energy usage, because it doesn't really make sense to use Las Vegas and Seattle. You're, not going to really have to deal with a lot of gas heating in Las Vegas. But you can also see our end use of total energy and where it comes from and how we are spending energy in the building.
How much of City Hall does the police precinct take up? And does the entire building heated because they're here 24 hours? Or is they like, I don't know where they are.
They're
basement.
They're literally
heated there.
right across the hall here.
Okay.
That's that opening, and they take up less room than the lobby.
Okay. And the
So
whole building stays heated. I'm not saying they don't serve heat because they do, but
part
the whole building.
part of that is our current system and current controls in that.
Okay.
And that would be part of any system that we are talking about updating, is revising the control systems so that we have better control over exactly that.
Okay.
So that we are not burning energy all the time. And that way we're doing what we can to optimize regardless of what we choose, because the control systems can be separate from the actual units themselves.
Sure.
So with the recommendation that we'll see here, how will is there a projection of how our energy usage will change in comparison to the median?
In comparison to the median, no.
Yeah.
Our energy usage will change in comparison to whichever choice we make, and that is included in the packets there. We do have utility savings, and we do have a chart showing how the energy usage will match the requirements we have in 2030 and 2050.
Could you, and I'm not looking for a long-winded explanation, but I live in a house with a couple of heat pumps, and it's a forced air system. I've got ducts, how heat pumps work, and it blows hot air around inside the house. How is this system working? Because my understanding is you've got an air to water system, and you're heating water and you're pumping that around.
I can tell you what the components are as far as how those systems work themselves. I may not be answering your questions to your satisfaction, but I can list the components that we have if you'd like. Okay. We have an upper floor boiler plant, 2 large VAV, variable air volume forced air systems, one for each, one for the main and upper floors, with hydronic hot water reheat VAV terminal unit, dedicated cooling for the city data center, and lower level parking garage exhaust. The VA systems, they do need work because simultaneous heating and cooling was observed in the 2022 Ming analysis, and some terminal equipment was not operating as commanded by the control system. So that's part of why, regardless of what we choose, the controls would be updated.
So I can hear some, sounds like air blowing back here. So, and I think I can see some ducts up there, but I don't know whether that's a. So is the system heating water, and then that hot water is used to heat the air, and then this variable air thing is blowing the air around the building?
It sounds like it with the boilers that are not.
Yeah.
On page 9 of the packet, the existing mechanical and plumbing systems are shown in the diagram and can probably do a better job of explaining that pathway.
There's a picture of the slide before.
Yeah, it was. It's also kind of small, so if you go back.
I don't think I got that.
There, this one. So you might be able to read that, but unfortunately, I
So
print a little tiny.
the reason for my question was, it sounds like controlling with some sort of a smart sensor system, heating areas like the police across the hall, and not heating areas like the throne room over here next door, when they're not in use, could do a lot to reduce the energy budget for the building.
Possibly, but we also will not hit the benchmarks that are required by the Washington State Energy. Sorry, I'm forgetting my terminology here. The energy requirements from the state, or the cap, if we only do like for like and replace controls.
No, I understand that, but with either the all electric or hybrid system, can you control it or by zones?
That would be the goal, is
Okay.
to use the new systems and to update the control systems to accommodate a more efficient zone control.
Okay.
Forgot to hand these out, but we do have hard copies.
Oh, okay. See, it's up there. Looks like
That's
it.
yours. Yeah.
See, oh, okay. It's blowing heating pipes that run in front of a fan and then blowing air over
Yeah.
that pipe.
Yeah.
And
See, but it's an and, so we're looking at kind of big picture, and no matter which path the city moves forward with, the controls will be updated.
So right now you'd say you've got a dumb controller instead of a smart one? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's a real scientific terminology.
Yeah,
Just keep going.
Okay, so this is covering the total emissions of the building. And those carbon emissions are calculated by adding the emissions from electricity to the emissions from gas, and then multiplying its energy use by its corresponding carbon intensity factor. The total annual emissions for City Hall are 700 metric tons a year, with 45% coming from electricity and 55% coming from natural gas.
All right, here's another question I got. It's my understanding that we're on the Green Power Program, which the city is, and you can say your electricity is clean. So this chart here, you can subtract out the electricity because you're buying from Puget Sound Energy, supposedly, renewable energy.
yes, Steve, I think that's part of what we've talked about. Sorry, I'll let you speak in just a
go
moment. Which is, there's the city being a leader in green power and trying to set that example for residents, and supporting clean energy regionally, supporting Puget Sound Energy's programming. And taking that next step for decarbonization is still a requirement via the Washington State Energy Strategy. So signing up for Puget Sound Green Power does not necessarily exempt us from that. It's kind of an add-on, right? So we're not, that is not directly applicable for this kind of a study. So it's kind of like, it's the same reason we're not necessarily accounting for carbon offsets in the climate action plan. We're accounting for some, but we're not looking at tree planting, right? Because
True.
they're different scales and different levers that you can pull.
But in the climate action plan in 2030, and remember, it was written without green power in mind,
Yeah.
even though it does talk about it.
Mhm.
It says, it shows in 2030 that our electricity is effectively clean.
Mhm.
You know, if you notice, it takes a big drop
Mhm.
in that bar in 2030.
And a big part of that is Puget Sound Energy requirements to meet the clean energy
Yeah.
transportation.
Even though they're still gonna be sending us electricity that's probably got, I don't know, 400 or 500 pounds per metric ton of greenhouse gases.
Yeah. Andrew, anything to add on that?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm just picking with your bookkeeping here, that's all.
Right. So, what we are recommending is a hybrid electrification system here. We are recommending that over full electrification for a number of reasons. One of which is the total first cost. You can see the comparison here between hybrid electrification and full electrification is significantly lower for hybrid electrification. You can also see the column of like for like cost for replacing with what we have in place. So our net first cost is 2.7 million. And the reduction, the annual carbon reduction by 2050 gets us extremely close to full electrification. When we augment that with solar, we are at 97% carbon reduction by 2050. And not only will we show you that there is a significant first cost savings here, but we will also demonstrate that there is a significant monthly savings in utility by going with hybrid electrification over full electrification. We show that the solar cost in there is separate because it can be additive to either system. And the EV charging, we did have that as well as an additive system.
Not on the table for today, but if the plan goes forward on the solar aspect, something we've learned in our interactions with Puget Sound Energy, our community solar project. So just down the street at Pine Lake Middle School, the school district leases the roof space to PSE for the solar, for the EV system. And they generate monthly income as like a rental rate for the real estate in order for PSE to use that area for their project. So something to consider, is that an opportunity for the city as well? Could the city partner with PSE, put panels on the roof, generate some income that might further demonstrate the value proposition for the hybrid approach?
We can certainly look into that. Would PSE be the one doing the construction, or is this the city would be putting the bill for the construction?
It's PSE's equipment, so I would assume they did all the construction.
One thing to, yes, so Puget Sound Energy would do the construction. One thing to note, if we were to turn this, a city-owned, city-maintained, city solar array versus a Puget Sound Energy community solar array, the city would not see the carbon reduction from that community solar array. That would be what residents are buying into. So that would reduce our, that would, impact that 6% solar carbon reduction. But, maybe part of the space could be community solar or something like, could be worth looking into. But that just is one consideration for community solar.
I don't know how many watts you can get out of your total roof square footage, but I did read in here you can only have 100 kilowatts on the net metering.
Yeah,
that's all PSE will let you do. If you've got a solar array that generates more than that, maybe you've got two arrays up there. one for hooking up with the net metering and another one to do what Nick's trying to talk.
Yeah, the solar is covered on page 18 of the PDF. So all of the details on that are covered there.
But I think the takeaway here is that the hybrid approach plus solar gets the city to 97%, which is above the 96% goal in the climate action plan.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why we're recommending this is we feel that the hybrid for City Hall, hybrid electrification is a much stronger option than either like for like, which does not satisfy, a full electrification, which we feel in some ways is overkill and also more expensive and doesn't recoup the utility savings we'd be looking for month to month.
A point that is in the hybrid is the backup generator going to be diesel?
Here you can see the backup gas boilers, and you can see the air to water heat pump modules.
Okay, so they're going to be, you're going to hook those up to the natural gas system.
Yes,
Because
those are backup.
Much as I hate to say this, it's cleaner than diesel.
But yes, you can see the component makeup of the system that we're recommending here. You can see that we would not be requiring significant electrical or generator upgrades, and that is a key component in what we were looking for. That we wanted to be able to use our current capacity if at all possible. This is the full electrification, and you can see how that component would be constructed as well. And it also requires a significant electrical and generator upgrade, which is a significant portion of the cost. The current service would not satisfy this, and we do have a more detailed
Current service, like you need to run more electricity?
Yes.
Current service?
Yeah, if you look at page 19 in the PDF, we show that the demand load would exceed the current capacity that we have with a full electrification system, and that does not even include the added EV. That would be above and beyond that. The hybrid recommendation has room for 27 chargers without requiring a service upgrade. That is not a specified grade of charger, but a rough ballpark of.
Andrew, you mentioned the city had a data center on site a little while ago. Is that correct?
The city infrastructure for the computer system.
So what is that anticipated to scale up in the future? And then are you building out to have excess capacity in case the power needs increased for the building? Hybrid approach?
One of the things, again, page 19 shows graphically that the hybrid would have, it would have a pretty sizable leeway there.
Yeah.
If we go with the hybrid. If we go with the full electrification, we have to increase it.
Is there like a standard or expectation for how far below capacity you want the regular demands to be, or is that just kind of?
We didn't have an outline, especially when the numbers came back like this. We were comfortable with the range, so we didn't go to a more granular, kind of like yellow zone, red zone aspect.
Sounds good.
So for option 2B here, the costs come in with the backup generator moving. That's like the difference between hybrid and full was it the backup generator moving and then the added service? Is that where the extra 3 million coming from?
Appendix B breaks down some of these costs on here. So we've got a breakdown of these with we have a structural cost, we're estimating of around 150,000 because some of these components will require kind of pad and structural upgrades on the roof. The electrical, we estimate as coming in at like a 3.2 mil, and mechanical coming in at a like 3.4. There's small plumbing cost in there as well, but that's kind of with either system we choose is going to be around 40.
Okay.
But the mechanical costs alone are relatively similar between them. It's your larger difference is the electrical impact. That's going to be one of the more
Getting
serious costs.
the more electrical load to the building is the cost.
Yeah.
I have a really quick question. I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense, but is there like any difference between the life cycle of these two options, like the hybrid?
Not really. The life cycle, the components, there's not really a true difference there. They tend to be replaced around the same amount of time. And a lot of in my experience with construction for a couple of decades was 10 to 20, you really in that 10 to 20 range, you start thinking about it. After 20, you definitely want to change it because it's probably going to break. And you just don't want to get to the point of, oh, it's broke, because it never breaks on a comfortable day.
In February.
It's going to break in February, or it's going to break in July. It's not going to be one of those. It's a lovely day today in early April.
Hey, Andrew, just a quick follow-up to Tim's cost question. So for these types of CapEx projects, I know the city does like biannual budgeting. So if approved, would the cost of this project be incorporated into the budget, or would this require the city to issue a bond to cover the costs that we're talking about here?
I'm unsure about how the city would handle the payment for that.
Yeah.
I can show you in the timeline later on what we're projecting as far as when we feel that this would happen. Depending on when it is, parts of City Hall would fall into the biennial. Unless we do solar, none of MOC would fall into the biennial. That would be part of our 6-year capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And the City Hall would be under the capital improvement, the 6-year capital improvement plan.
Can you go back a couple slides to the one where we had the chart where it showed that big gap of how much electricity is being used versus the load that's coming to the building? This one right here. Is there a reason it's currently so much, the load coming to the building is so much higher than what's actually being used? Like, was that a structural design that's in place now? So like, the point of my question is the big difference between the two, the only difference really in the cost is upgrading the service of the building, right? Do we need, was it intentional that capacity gap was built there? And do we think we need that in the future? So we're gonna have to end up paying the cost in 2035 anyway?
That's
to get there?
Pretty much the very similar to what Swan was asking about our comfort level with the area there. As far as the original construction, there are service levels that we have, like 1,000 amp service. You don't want to get too much lower because it's not going to be 1,000 amp versus like 950 or 900. It's going to drop down to, and I'm just throwing a number out. I don't know PSE's exact level of service, but it might drop down to a 500 amp service. And 500 might have been a little closer, especially back in 2006 when the building was built and the systems weren't as efficient. There are incremental advances that can be made, and we will address that in the course of this to get from 96 to the 100. Is having faith in there is a little bit of movement, but also you can see from the in the packet here roughly how much room we are leaving in this, where we're leaving what looks like about 20 to 25% just as a gap, which is something we're comfortable with. As far as the amount there, I can't speak to what was done 20 years ago, but that was not.
paraphrase, there were essentially kind of two options when we started.
Mhm.
And one of them was probably on the threshold or whatever, so we went higher, I get us there, and now we're just here.
That's
There
my,
wasn't like a real
Yeah.
plan of like.
that's my
this much
best
caption
guess.
Keep
I
in,
cannot speak.
keep in mind, a regular house, 200 amps of service. I don't know whether you wanna call it 120 volts or 240 volts. You got at least 24 kilovolts there of service. You're probably not using half of that, even in peak, in your house.
Right.
So I'm thinking that's probably the thinking 20 years ago when they, well, how big a wire are we gonna build, bring in the building?
Ranger, I just want to do a quick time check. So we're about 45 minutes in.
Mhm.
We still have the MOC to talk about, so how?
MOC is gonna go quick.
Okay,
Go ahead. and-
I know we got a lot of questions.
Annual utility savings.
Mhm.
The,
You keep going.
utility savings that we would see with hybrid, with and without solar, are fairly significant, especially compared to the cost we would incur with full electrification here. You can see our life cycle carbon savings on the right, with solar added to both of them. But this is another factor in recommending hybrid, is we're not only hitting our benchmarks that we're looking for, we're also doing it in a way that actually saves us money, as opposed to going full electrification, which would be a cost to the city.
I think that'll probably be a very good point for the council, like that, I think that will resonate.
I'm
with us.
hoping so.
It's the triple bottom line, people plan a profit, right?
Yeah. This is a graphic representation of the cost between the two systems. We've covered all of this information. But right down at the bottom, hybrid electrification achieves 89% the carbon reduction for 58% of the cost.
Mhm.
So this is, one of the key components for what we're talking about doing as far as a recommendation goes.
This estimate was done by the McKinstry people.
Yes.
I noticed in the packet that they said they used what was the standard? They used 18 pounds of CO2 per therm. You go to the EPA website, they tell you it's 11.7 pounds for a therm of natural gas. If you run the calculation and assume that therm is 100,000 BTU, like 10 cubic feet, each cubic feet being 100 cubic feet, each cubic feet being 1,000 BTU. I guess I'd like to understand, why did they use 18 when virtually every government agency says it's 11.7?
I can ask him.
I think that's a great question to include in the Q&A matrix for our next meeting.
Yeah, and the sooner
Well,
I can get that, the sooner I can get that
Yeah.
to McKinstry so they can answer that question.
Every time I
Because-
ask one of those questions, you'll try and answer it. So I'm wondering if they're counting on all of the leakage that might occur, which would be, I guess, kind of a quasi scope 3.
I'm happy to ask them.
Okay. Yeah, Energy and Information Agency, which is part of the Department, the US Department of Energy, is where I got my numbers. They quote 116.65 pounds per mega kilowatt hour. Mega, is that right? Yeah, megawatt hour.
Okay. This is the solar analysis information that we have for the building here. This is their potential photovoltaic layout. And this is mentioning the 30% IRA tax credit. They do acknowledge that this is not their true area of expertise, and we would need to engage with a tax specialist that is knowledgeable about these credits. But we are looking to start moving fairly quickly on this so that we can take advantage of any of these credits before the end of 2027.
I have a resource for you. We'll connect
Thank
on.
you.
Does the city pay a different rate for electricity than we do?
I don't know.
Cause it was quoted in here as 13.5 cents. Numbers today are 17 over 600 kilowatt hours. On my bill anyway.
The time that we did the demand
It
load
might have been
was
back then.
24 to 25, so I can't speak
It
to
could
what the
be, 'cause
charge
it's-
was.
It's done a big jump.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what those.
okay.
Okay.
Yep, we've covered this a couple of times. Now we're seeing it. This is the demand load that we have in the building and our existing systems versus our projection for hybrid electrification, and then the full electrification. You can see that the full electrification would take us over even without incorporating an EV load, and that would require extra service and a generator. Hybrid allows us to have room to add 27 EV chargers without a service upgrade.
Are they free or do the users pay for them?
Which part?
The EV chargers?
Uh,
This is just for the cities, not for the
Yes.
public.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is to support city fleet
Got it.
operation.
Yeah.
And are they gonna be level 2? Something.
One of the things I had said earlier is we aren't specifying level 1, 2, or 3 in that count. That is a broad strokes placeholder
All right.
without specifying, because that is a kind of a more granular question about what we're doing and related to the fleet electrification study. Okay. This is just kind of recapping all of the information that we've talked about earlier. This is moving our UI down from 160 to 90. And you can see the breakdown of that with the natural gas versus electricity and the expected cost savings.
I would just, for your presentation, I would clarify, is that an annual, is that a lifetime?
That would be an annual.
Yeah, I would just add an annual to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do actually note under the utility savings that it is an annual for hybrid.
Yeah.
So it is mentioned on that page.
It's great.
And what's the life cycle that we're considering? Is it 20 years? I think is the one you said. So
Actually,
20,000
go
times
to the
20 gives you your payback.
25 to 29 years, I think.
okay. So this is our carbon roadmap, which is kind of addressing what you had just asked about with our hybrid electrification implementation. I apologize. Roughly 2028, showing that our natural gas emissions virtually flatten out at that point, and we start additional energy reduction measures. You can see it at 3. We don't exactly hit the 50%, but we are counting on optimizing control systems and things like that to help us get to that 50%. And then we are believing that later on, when the heat pumps reach end of life and we do have other technology advancements by 2050, we will be able to take care of that last 4%.
So the solar is not in here?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Solar install.
Yeah, so there's being.
Yes.
Okay.
And the drops from 28 to 2045 in electricity, that's the energy grid changing. Is that what that is? Or is that
Well, that's
the
the electricity emissions. Yes.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, so utility grid phases out fossil fuels.
Yes.
That's the Clean Energy Transformation Act.
Yes.
Footnote 5.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's down there at
So-
that point.
Earlier you said hybrid plus solar was gonna get us to 97%,
Yes.
but this doesn't show it.
We do show at roughly 2049. We have that drop to that.
Oh, okay. That's just not, all right.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point you need to make, city council. Hybrid plus solar. Is a touchdown.
It is getting us right to the goal line. There still needs to be some improvements that we expect to happen over the next 24 years that get us across that line, but it gets us so close that we are confident about that margin. Okay.
I think that will be, that should be one of your key sales items.
Okay. This is our implementation timeline. We have the EV chargers that can be implemented at any point, and that's kind of broadly open. We are talking about the solar array in the next 2 years to be performed, with the work for the hybrid system occurring in 2028.
And would that be implementation of the system or the planning phase of the system?
We would like to begin the planning stage before. This is implementation of the system itself.
Okay.
So when would it be up and running?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
When would it be running?
2028 is what we would expect that
Okay.
to be operational. I can't speak to which portion of 2028. My goal in this would be to have the work performed at a time of year which has the least impact on our work environment, so that we're not doing it in December or we're not doing it in July. We would like for this work to be done in some of the milder temperatures, and once we have the plans together and can go out for it, then we can get a reasonable timeline of construction and implementation.
Okay.
Luckily, we have duct systems in place. That's a huge time sink on construction. And if this is if we can do the plumbing, the hydronic piping, if that has to change, there is plumbing costs in there at $40K, which is not the largest impact as far as a building wide system. But
it sounds like it's a time issue.
time to completion or time?
Well, time to take it, to do it.
Yes, I mean, there's a time factor involved, but we don't have that yet.
Okay.
All right. That concludes the city hall. And I would like to go on.
Before we go to the MOC, Rich, could you put the recommendation slide back up? This one. Okay. So I think, Andrew, before we move on to the MOC, I just want to go around the room with the commissioners, and I would like, either we can do this as a discussion or someone could propose a motion for endorsement, and we can vote yay or nay on that.
I move that we propose to the city council that they opt for the hybrid system.
Second.
With solar as it is.
With solar, yes.
And I would support that with the clarification that you follow up with the answers. Steve had a couple questions regarding some of the metrics, just to clarify that.
I've got a couple of them. I've got notes, but is there a transcript I can get so I get his exact questions so I can make sure
that sound good,
we're
Steve?
answering this?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of endorsing the recommendations as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain? Okay. Andrew, you have our endorsement for the city hall recommendation.
All right. Thank you. We should be able to knock out MOC pretty quickly because for a lot of it, we can go through quickly. It's a lot of the same ideas behind it. The difference is, and I will tell you this up front, we are recommending full electrification for the MOC. So if you want to go ahead and go, and I'll tell you when to stop. These are all the same. Okay, hold on, back there. This roughly shows the system. You can see in this graphic that A, it's 18,000 square feet, and B, it's a different kind of system than we have at City Hall. Here you can also see the fact that natural gas, because it's not a 24/7 building, natural gas has the expected drop off in the summer. So gas is kind of less of a year-round hit here and more of a season. The building energy use breaks down in a similar manner here. And this is basically what you saw before, but you can also see how much less we are using per year at the MOC. We are recommending full electrification. One of the things that we see here is that there isn't that difference in the delta between full electrification and hybrid that we were seeing in City Hall, mainly because the electrical service is not impacted in the same way. And also you can see how close a hybrid system is and the full electrification to a like-for-like replacement. So there's not nearly the range that we have here. We've also got solar that would get us over the line on either one of them. But if we go full electrification, solar has much less of an impact. In fact, it doesn't really factor into the carbon reduction at all.
How is the like for like number the same between the two?
Like for like is the existing system replaced with just a newer version of that. That's why it's the same, and actually it was the same at City Hall.
The carbon reduction, is that based on the like for like, or?
No, that's based on the recommendation, which would be 100% carbon reduction for full electrification and 88% carbon reduction for hybrid. Like for like, we did not calculate because it was not going to get us to the numbers. This is just a more detailed roadmap kind of showing you the system and how that would be constructed. Hybrid shows that we will be retaining some of the gas unit heaters and the gas water heaters. Here, you would see the annual utility savings with both systems are slightly more expensive, but we're talking about $1,200 a year, $100 a month versus, $300 a year. So these are also much closer in the annual utility savings. Now, if you add solar into both of those, they're both a benefit to us. So that is something that we could start to recoup with solar. This is basically just a breakdown of how of those costs. Yes.
Brief thing for solar, just because I know the council is going to ask about it, as what the timeline on the additional installation costs for solar, basically the return on investment. They will. Do you know the return on investment for?
We have an initial cost, and it was covered in here of roughly between, I think it was 280 and 315,000 for the MOC. The MOC is going to be a little different because the footprint is not as optimal as City Hall. And also, if you've been over to the MOC, there's a lot of like tree cover that is close but not obstructing the building. But City Hall we are unfettered by foliage at this site. So
odds are, just from what I've seen in the council meetings, odds are they will want to ask about like how many years it would be the return on investment for the panels. So that would be a good number to have on hand for them.
All right. So here is the solar layout. 280 to 315. So that's the proposed first cost of those items. And the footnotes, you can find the footnotes in the packets that we have if you want a little more detail on those. But you can see the photovoltaic layout is smaller than it would be for City Hall. Here, you can see that all three of these options are still within the current electrical service. If we add EV there, the EV charging load for the fleet, it does not matter what we do. Even if we replace like for like, we are going to have to add extra service. That is going to be a cost. It's not calculated in here because that's largely a PSE cost that they would have to provide for us when we could give them a better outline of, hey, what we want to do. So we kind of need to have a little more of a roadmap before we can get a cost from them on that.
So you basically want to double the output on the. All that green bar is about twice what is for this building.
That's because there would be more heavy duty vehicles
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
that would be the idea with that.
Yeah.
Since we have started this study, we have had, the electric vehicle industry has had some very major changes to it, and Ford has stopped its F-150 line. So we do have questions about what are the next steps going forward for the industry itself before we can even make a decision on what we should do, because we may not even have options depending on what's out there.
Or the current geopolitical situation, means we might have more options, who knows?
Yeah.
EVs are getting a lot of interest these days.
Yeah.
So keep going. And you can see the roadmap that we've got here. It's so much faster and is really not even contingent on advances in the technology over the next 24 years. This is a much easier lift as far as getting to those benchmarks. And here we have the timeline set up. One of the reasons that we do have full electrification as opposed to hybrid electrification here is partially as a what if hybrid's not doing what we want and we're not comfortable with it in any other capacity, then we can actually, we've already got the map out for full electrification. And if we're like, nah, hybrid's doing exactly what we wanted, it's really giving us the return we're looking for, then we could actually downgrade this if we wanted to save that, what was it, roughly 500,000, something like that. So this would give us kind of a worst case scenario. And since the Delta was not nearly as impactful as it was with City Hall, and we wouldn't have to increase the service unless we go with the EV route, and then we're going to have to increase it regardless. We felt that this was the best recommendation for the MOC, and we could always downgrade that recommendation since we do have a longer timeline. This would give us minimum 2 years, up to 7 years of data to collect from City Hall to see what we felt about the system that was recommended and implemented here before we, had to have it up and running at MOC. That wouldn't be the full 7 years because you do have design time in there, but it does give us a very strong lead up of data. We're not going with 3 months of data before we have to make a decision.
Yeah.
We've got years of data, which is something we liked as far as an option here, just so that we can make the most responsible choice for the community. That's it.
Any other questions for Andrew?
Why are you, if you can hit zero with just electrification, why are you proposing solar panels on the MOC?
Solar panels has an annual cost savings, and also because at the time the city had wanted to explore solar as far as an aspect here, and we wanted to present it. It's listed as a separate line item, so we can eliminate solar if that's what the desire is ultimately. But when you look at the annual savings with solar, you can at least make the decision of, well, we have all the data and we can choose to implement solar or not.
But has a feasibility survey been done on the building? You said that it had a fettered tree canopy access, so.
As far as a separate feasibility study, McKinstry looked at it and did their calculations that you saw on the
So
solar.
they said
page.
solar is a viable option for the MOC?
That is what their findings show.
Okay.
So is your recommendation full with solar or full and solar if it seems appropriate?
We are recommending full with solar, but that is more to comply with the wishes of the city that we have, we've been kind of pointed in the direction of. We don't feel that the impact of the solar initial front cost is so high that we shouldn't consider it.
Makes sense. Okay.
It also works towards the city's renewable energy goals. Yeah.
And yeah, it also looks good for the community to say, hey, we're not going to ask you to do something we're not willing to do ourselves.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. Speaking of social.
So are you looking for a recommendation out of us on the MOC?
Yes.
Because it's so far in the future, I'm wondering if it's something.
But I mean, the city's gonna, I mean, if it gets approved, you said there's gonna be some additional engineering studies, they've got to fund
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Like 7 years is not that far, probably for budgeting horizon.
Right.
Yeah, the city hall, we would like to get moving in the near future because 2028 is not that far away. But there is room with the MOC, and like I said, that one of the things that we liked about the recommendation, even if it's a contingent recommendation, is that it gave us years of data points to see if we are making the best choice for the city. And if after we go through City Hall and we have a couple of years of data, and if somebody goes, maybe hybrid's the best choice for the city, that's literally why we've set it up this way. I would rather say that, hey, it's going to cost this amount, and then it comes in lower and go, hey, look, we've saved some money, rather than have it here and then go, we really need to spend this extra money.
Yeah, you don't make friends doing that.
Right.
Okay, any other questions before we vote?
I'm just wondering, are the engineering costs and other studies included in the costs we saw here?
The engineering is not, because there's design costs for that. But the engineering costs are, when you're talking about generating the documentation for that cost is significantly lower.
All right, can someone put forward a motion let's put a motion to approve the recommendation for the MOC as proposed, which is the full electrification plus solar.
I move that we endorse the recommendation to proceed with full electrification and solar for the MOC.
I give a second. 1 second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, you're 2 for 2. You've got the commission's endorsement for the second proposal.
All right.
Thank you.
This was really interesting. Thank you for
Thank you.
presenting
I
on
was
this today.
really, I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to y'all about this. We're really proud of this work. McKinstry, we feel, did a great job with it. This was a very, very interesting and involved project to work on. And it was a lot of fun.
The documents are very well put together.
Yeah, I like this energy unit intensity.
Yeah.
I had to go calculate it.
Yeah, give you some more math to chew on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And just a reminder, Andrew will be, our consultant who Andrew worked with will be presenting this same study findings and recommendations to council on June 2nd. So if you're interested to attend that meeting, as individual residents, you're welcome to provide public comment. And then we will also be including the commission's recommendation in the agenda bill that goes to council.
So how careful do we have to be? I mean, any one of us walks up to that podium, they're gonna know we're a plant.
Rachel, maybe I'll let you speak here. Rachel.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my apologies for not being able to be there today. So thank you all for everything. And Andrew, thanks for your great presentation. So you are a plant not unlike other commissioners that you've seen go up there and advocate for things, right? So you've seen the Parks Commission go up and advocate for different things that are moving forward. So the council wants to hear from you. That's why you're in the positions that you're in, and we appreciate your service.
All right.
would be
Any more
cool.
questions?
For a mustache.
Sounds great, thank you.
Oh, probably.
Okay, thank you, everyone. If you have follow-up questions or something comes to mind, feel free to send those after the fact and we can track those down. We'll be working with McKinstry to address those questions that you brought forward, Steve.
Okay,
Do you wanna-
Yeah, next up, so sustainability ambassadors, their contract, as I understand it, with the school districts expired. The city's contract with its sustainability ambassadors has expired, and we're looking at, city's looking at renewing it for the 2026-2027 school year. Before Rose kicks off some discussion, feedback that I had with Rose, chatting with her today is I think the sustainability ambassadors do a great job. You're a graduate. I really appreciate having them come to our meetings, volunteering with us. They seem like they collect a lot of data that helps benefit the school district. So the question I had for Rose is, are there any gaps in the metrics that the city's using for our climate action plan implementation and engagement that perhaps the sustainability ambassadors could help us with? Impacts within the school districts, within their communities. Is that something, if the city renews this contract, do we want to get more data from the sustainability ambassadors to help Rose kind of put the metrics picture together for the cap? Does anyone else have any other observations or feedback or things that they would want to see working with the sustainability ambassadors going forward?
Broadly speaking, I think the one of the main functions of having that connection with the sustainability ambassadors is being able to use the stuff that we do here to support what they're doing because of how important it is. So I do think if we can find ways for them to support back to the city with whatever data they collect, I think that would be fantastic. But I wouldn't want that to be a condition of working with them.
Right.
But I think that is fantastic. I think that would be a great conversation to have with them. As long as it's not this is required.
Well, Rose, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I would assume is in the city's contract mechanism, there would be the objectives, here are the objectives the city has in renewing the contract, and the details would be in there, and that could be one of.
That could be a discussion land. Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah, that would be something we would consider while developing the scope of work with Peter for next year. And it would be something that we could include as a project deliverable. And so that's something that we would do in collaboration with ambassadors. We wouldn't take anything that they, is past their capacity or ability to provide.
And then just quick question in terms of timing. Is the renewal, just because I wasn't curious, is the renewal something that happens every year, or would we renew for a longer period of time?
This is something that we would look at for looking at a contract to start in August for the 2026-27 school year. And then that's something we would kind of evaluate on an annual basis based on funds and work plan.
Okay. Were they on contract last year?
Yes, we contracted with them this previous year. That contract ended at the end of April.
Okay. And what was the scope of work for this past year?
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide that. I think it was an agenda attachment in a previous commission meeting, but essentially we had them focusing very much in alignment with the commission's priorities. So focusing on building and energy and transportation outreach. Some of those deliverables we saw was the bus bingo. We did the sustainability ambassadors town hall and curriculum design lab focused around some of those topics, promotion of green power, education with their schools, PTA groups, community groups, the school green teams, and then individuals reaching out to their parents as well. So we had them really heavily focused on buildings and energy and transportation. And I anticipate that's a similar scope as to what we would see at a future contract as well. But that's part of what we're gathering here is if there's additional recommendations or areas that we'd like to see them focus on or not focus on if it maybe was not so successful.
And maybe as an add-on there, we could say or maybe support a sustainability commission project. Maybe there's something we can put our heads together, right? Because Peter's mentioned this, he's always looking for projects for the students. So maybe there's something that aligns with what we're trying to do where we could have some students maybe do some legwork and kind of get a project going for us. And that helps with decision-making, with data analysis, with priorities. I don't know, but something to think about.
Yeah, I really love Nick's idea. I think like I'm all for the contract renewal because I think like working with the sustainability ambassadors gives them a bunch of leadership opportunities. It's like the coolest collaboration in my opinion. So I think we should definitely go a little further with giving them a big project to work on to help us with, or just I guess making like the connection between their impact projects and the climate action plan very clear. Like we could split up their impact projects into like the categories of the climate action plan and just make that connection more clear.
Thank you. It's helpful feedback.
Yeah, I think it is very important program. I think irrespective of if they don't do anything for the city, they are thinking about sustainability, the different approach. At their age, they're thinking about it, and we are creating some leaders. It has a long impact on their life, their thought process, and their career. So I think it is a very good program. And I did not know that it is a contract or anything. I thought it is a volunteer program in this school or something like that. But if there is a contract, that's fine, you know. So if the city provides some scholarships or some, you know, support, and that's also even better. They can do.
I mean, Rose and Rachel, do both of you have to kind of justify the value of this to the city council moving forward, or is the value understood, or will you get pushback if we advocate for a continued contract?
I'll jump in for you, Rose. I don't think we'll get pushback. I think first of all, the city council absolutely loves it when young people are involved in city policy, right? So I'm not concerned about that. You know, if anybody's following the city these days, and Swan, I know you were there Tuesday, right? First of all, it felt like the Rachel show because I was up there the entire meeting, but we are having a lot of conversations right now about fiscal sustainability, right? And the fact that our after this coming biennium, our ongoing expenses will not match our ongoing revenues. So I'm not concerned about this project in and of itself. It's a relatively low dollar, right? The only thing I could see is if the council is concerned about the next biennium, making a decision immediately, right, in the time frame. So, but Rose and I have talked about that, and there's ways for us to take care of that. That makes sure that, you know, we're doing the investment up front, right? So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Try to put a realistic, I want to make sure everybody's understanding, right, about the things that the city is facing. But again, these are great young people doing a lot of really good work. It's a low dollar investment that the city sees a lot of return on. And I just want to the point of the leadership opportunities for the young people, right? You can't calculate that.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, the reason for this existence of this committee is to educate our residents that they need to lower their carbon footprint. And we need help. And
Absolutely.
Here's a fantastic organization that's willing to step in and help.
So the only costs we're looking at is the dollar, like the small dollar amount. Is that like the only
For the contract, correct? Yeah,
Well, yeah, and our time, which is free.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask I'll ask a negative question, but I probably would. What happens if we say no? And we don't find, is this whole program shutter? Is it standing up on the city's contract, or is it?
So if we choose not to renew the contract with sustainability ambassadors, there are a number of other municipalities and nonprofits that do contract with them. So their work would continue. It just would not continue in the focused way that we've seen in Sammamish. So they would be focusing more of their resources elsewhere. And those students might still be doing work within their schools, but they wouldn't be, you know, promoting green power for us or tabling at city events. Or advocating for the city specific programming and the climate action plan actions and topics that they had been previously. Obviously, some of the work with curriculum would still exist, but that targeted approach and targeted outreach that we've been benefiting from would cease.
So we would lose the middle school and high school kids that live in Seattle, that live in Sammamish, that go to either Lake Washington or Issaquah School District. We basically lose that workforce.
They wouldn't be
They
doing
wouldn't.
specific, like they wouldn't be doing the focus projects and like coordination with
Yeah,
the city, but they'd
They
still be
wouldn't be
doing the,
coordinating.
they would still be doing their own projects,
Yeah.
their own like
In the
curriculum
same
stuff within their-
schools.
Yeah, because there's still
So-
stuff within the school district. It just wouldn't be with connection with the city.
So then what we would lose would be our opportunity to influence it.
Or-
Exactly.
So to influence it, to benefit from it.
To benefit from it and support them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
I think we're all in favor from what I've got.
Yes.
So-
Yeah.
you want an official vote or,
That'd be great.
Okay.
We've done this, now we're doing a 3-2 meeting.
It's very.
Would you like to put forward a motion, Stephanie?
Sure, I would love to. I move that we renew the contract with sustainability ambassadors for 2026 to 27.
great,
Second.
second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay, the motion carries.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your feedback, and we'll be coming with to a future meeting to give a little bit more detail as we work on that scope of work, and then we'll begin that work starting in August, September.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Great.
Let's, Rich, we're gonna move on to the, you wanna look at the upcoming events agenda? Is that what you wanted to talk through next?
Sure. Yeah, we're moving on to commissioner and staff reports, so that definitely ties in.
Okay,
Just a couple of updates for the commission, and then we'll move into events. I did get an update from Puget Sound Energy on our green power numbers.
Mhm.
We had an additional 20 enrollments in the month of April, which is great.
How many came that birthday?
Okay.
I don't know the exact date on that,
Those
but
are the biggest ones.
this was a big month for us. We're up to 60% of our goal, which is great, especially given that we're, a little bit ahead of halfway through the year. So
Yeah,
we're
It's 60% as of
As of
May 1,
as of May 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
4
So
months, and we got 60.
we are very much on track and are looking at potential stretch goals, which is wonderful. And then you heard about some of the solar array plans as well this evening.
Yeah.
So that's great. Keeping up the good work. We'll continue to message on green power. You may have seen the Parks and Rec guide that very recently was published. There is kind of half of a page call out for green power in that, and then at the farmers market as we table throughout the summer months. Just a couple of date considerations, a heads up for the June meeting. We'll be starting work on the Sustainable Sammamish Guide. So there will be some pre-commission meeting work, and we're really going to hit the ground running in June, making those updates and creating the next rendition of that annual resource. And then if you don't mind pulling up, I guess I need to add and pull that up. Let me join the meeting real quick.
When will the pre-work be coming out?
That will likely be sent with the agenda the week before.
Just
So I will do my best to get a little bit ahead of that and maybe send out some pre-work, but it will definitely be by that agenda date. So you'll have that weekend. There's not going to be a ton that needs to be done ahead of time, but just some prompts to start thinking about and some feedback gathering so that I can make sure that we stay on track to get that published. I'm just gonna have Rich promote me to a panelist here shortly. Do you see me trying to join? Not yet.
We have a
And while I'm trying to join, maybe we could take just, here we go. Just a couple of minutes for any reflections from the Earth Day event that most of you attended. As I'm pulling up this event calendar, any big takeaways, recommendations for next year?
My favorite was when some guy, citizen, right, came up and told us all about the programs.
Oh, yeah.
I like walked through the whole cars, the basically
guy had
zip
solar
car thing.
panel, yeah, like
Yeah,
heat
that was the best
pumps,
part. I was like, he was like, I do this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
this keeps me from having a second car. This is how you use the app, and this is how you do the whole thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't. You can stand here because I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. That was the best.
My favorite comment from one of the kids was the question was, what's something you could do to help save the planet? And the kid goes, become an astronaut.
Leave the place.
Something we might just want to consider next time for the questions is a little bit more age granularity for them, just because a lot of the questions, especially for the younger kids, that we wanted just to engage them a little bit, just like I don't remember who it was, but it's like someone was just like had like some really good, just like very simple, just like questions for the kids that aren't really on the topics, but just like something to engage them, just like having a couple of those written down and then having just like potentially a little bit more granularity for the kids' age ranges.
Great.
I think Tim, yours was, what's your favorite or
Yeah,
color,
yeah,
blue or green? You know, for the
and that was
3-year-old.
great because
Yeah.
the kids engage. And I
Yeah.
think just like having just like a couple of those noted down, or just like the younger kids and then slightly older, and then just the more general, like more complicated questions, just because there were a bunch of the questions for the younger age range that I was just like, some of these I'm like, okay, I could ask pretty much any of the kids this, and then some of them I'm like, this is a question that I'm like, I'm not gonna, this is more than I would necessarily ask a 6-year-old who doesn't really know what any of this means. But like I could probably ask the like 8-year-old, 9-year-old tweens, so that sort of question.
Makes sense.
Just that might be helpful to have a little more granularity on.
Great, thank you.
But overall, people were very engaged. The stickers still, the people still seem to be enjoying the stickers, which is great.
It was great that the food vendors had compostable cutlery
Yes.
and plates and all of that. That's awesome. I'm glad the city did a contract on that.
And that they were right across from us.
Yeah.
I think for like the
Great.
craft.
For Sammamish, the sustainability focused farmers markets, that may be something to take away, is put our booth and the sustainable ones by the food instead of over here, because everybody was in line for the food and just came. So get more foot traffic.
We definitely got a lot more attention being at the front.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
it's a good one. I was thinking for the like trash sorting, compost sorting, recycle. It could help to have just like a nice like sign just like propped up next to it. I know Steve made our wonderful wheels, like having like a little wooden sign or something nice, just give people a guide.
Just like the which bucket infographic type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I think this year we had stickers on the cans, but actually having a larger upright visual, I think, especially if we could use the specific materials that the food trucks might be handing out and kind of like tape them on there, have pictures. That was something I was thinking about as well.
Yeah, the ambassadors could also help with that.
Yeah,
Cool.
that would be a good project for the ambassadors. Yeah, that's something big and visual.
So you're talking about a sign about like the one that's out there that directs us into the room, something like that? Oh,
A little larger, kind of like what you see at like airports, for example, where you have the bins and then you have the big signage behind the bins. Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. So looking at the event calendar for the next couple of months, we do have our first farmers market tabling opportunity next week on Wednesday. We'll be focusing on transportation for the summer and then promoting some of those programs like green power, excuse me, and Energy Smart East Side. So we'll have the wheel, we'll have all of the tabling materials that we typically have. Excuse me. And I encourage you all to attend if you are available. 2 other dates that I wanted to check in on is the 4th of July. So this is the meeting where we do need to make that decision on if there's enough folks around. Seeing how we're doing on green power, seeing the engagement we got at Earth Day. You know, I think that's really up to you all if you feel that you're available and that's an event that we want to capitalize on this year.
Do we want to do, I can't do the 4th of July. Do we want to do a quick pulse and see who's
Yeah.
willing and able?
as far as I know, I have nothing other than early time to bed.
Okay.
So we got one.
So Steve, that tabling does go till about I think
know.
10 p.m. Yeah.
Early is relative. Goes to bed every night at midnight.
Somebody who came up with the 4th of July wasn't thinking about the Northern Hemisphere.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm out of town. I will not be able to attend.
Okay.
I think I should be able to as of now. I don't have anything going on.
Okay.
No, Swan, are either of you available?
I am not on board.
Okay.
I should be available.
Okay. Great.
And we don't know, Christy's not here, so.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Christy and Brian and kind of follow up with you all to decide for sure.
So
by our next meeting.
that's 3 probablys and 3. And what was the minimum we needed?
I would like to have 4, just because I'll kind of be running between, making sure we're restocking. We do want to have 2 booth
I think get a
locations.
lot of steps that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're right on the cusp. We'll see how the next couple events go. I'll check in with Christy and we'll get back to you all by the next meeting with that decision.
The sense that I'm getting is that this is like, if I do feel like if we do get 4 probablys, that's probably a no-go in my opinion. Like I think we want at least 5 people is probably yes, unless we can get like hard commitments from people, which I can't give right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because we definitely can't do it with 3, and it's also not a super high priority event for us. Like I think it would be cool if we can't have a presence there, but ultimately if we don't, the city booth will still have some of the materials that we would be presenting anyway, and it's not, like we've talked about, it's not our highest priority event. So I do think if we are going to go forward, we want to make sure that we are likely to have that many people before making any sort of commitment.
That's a really good point, Swan. And I do have QR codes and materials that our parks team has mentioned they'd be willing to have available. But yeah, it's a good point. It is not necessarily a sustainability focused event, and a lot of folks are maybe not there to come visit booths.
Yeah.
So good considerations. The other date that I'd like to kind of run by all of you is for our October meeting. We do have a tentative date with Cedar Grove for a tour of their facility down in Maple Valley. So the date we're looking at is Wednesday, October 7th at 3 p.m. They do have some flexibility. So if you know off of the top of your head that Wednesday afternoons are, really not a good day for you, there's childcare considerations, work considerations, school considerations. Now is a good time to speak up because I'm working to get that scheduled and we do have some flexibility.
What is the flexibility? Is that in terms of day or also in terms of time?
Both.
Okay.
They do not really do anything later than 3 p.m. That's kind of their latest tour day, but the day of the week is flexible.
Earlier could be an option if that would work better.
Earlier could be an option, yes. So I want to plant the seed now, early, just to make sure that we can have as many folks in attendance as possible. And the Republic Services Murph tour was really well attended by you all, so I want to try to give everyone that same opportunity this time around.
That should be able for me though.
Yeah, I think I'm available.
Yeah,
Works for me.
Okay.
sounds good.
We're very early, so I know it was Wednesday is like for sure a no-go. I wanted to make sure I was aware of that.
She sounds like video.
Okay, great.
And let us know when it is confirmed so that we put in the calendar and.
Yeah.
You're
Perfect.
just gonna
Yeah.
skip class on that day, Stephanie? Okay.
I'll confirm that in the next.
Environmental sciences anyway or something. It's a field trip.
Maybe you can get points for it. Write a report about it.
I'll get some credit.
Great. I'll send out that confirmation in the next week or so, as well as a calendar invite. And then if you all want to kind of work amongst yourselves to create carpool groups, I think that would be great.
Yeah, well, it's a little further, so we'll probably want to try and coordinate that.
Yeah. Okay, just checking my notes here. 4th of July, Farmers Market. Sustainable Sandwich. That was everything I had on my list for commission and staff reports. Does anyone else have anything? Otherwise, we can adjourn early.
Wow, that's unheard of.
Can Andrew come back and we ask you?
Got more time.
Me.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
Do we have a second? All right, all in favor of adjourning early, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Wonderful. We'll see you all back here on June 11th or next week at the farmers market.
I will not be able to make it. I have to go to Bend to babysit.
It's a long way to go.
You can start now. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.